Good morning and welcome to the David and David on Real Estate podcast. We are today on episode number 127. And we have a special guest. Welcome, Sameer Amini. I hope I said that correctly to the
Good.
podcast.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. It is definitely my first episode ever on a podcast. And I'm happy that it's happening with all of you.
Well, we have a lot of confidence in you. David Gorski has told me a lot about you and thinks very highly of you. And I did my little research to figure out who you are, what you're all about. And I'm very excited to have you on with us because you're a wealth of knowledge and experience. And I think anybody that's going to watch and listen to this podcast is really going to benefit from it. So thanks for joining us today, Sameer.
I appreciate it. Thanks again. Thanks for the kind words.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to it. Why don't you start off and tell us a little bit about your history? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
A little bit about me. Okay, where do we start? So let's keep it short. I started into real estate. I very quickly became obsessive with what happens behind the scenes. This is a childhood hobby that I've had where I would open up monitors, every part of every device because I wanted to know how's the magic happening. So that same curiosity led me into getting to the world of management behind the scenes of being a broker record. I've had many experiences in that role. We got into, I specifically got joined with Humber College since day one that they began. I was very lucky and honored to be part of that and go through that journey until today. So it's about 4.5 years now. And tons of stories and life experiences that happened throughout that time. I've been part of managing companies such as Real Broker Ontario for about a year. Then moving on now, currently being at my current position where I'm acting as a director for a brokerage.
That's amazing. And, going back to going behind the scenes and kind of dissecting and looking and seeing how things function, I think that was, you being involved in Humber College at the beginning, at the onset of the rollout of the new education program, really gave you a unique experience to be able to kind of dive in and be part of that experience and part of that process, which is, not a lot of people can say that they've gone through something like that and they've really
Sure.
experienced such a milestone shift in our industry because the Ontario Real Estate Association was responsible for licensing requirements in our industry for about 30 years. And then Rico said, you know what, we want to increase the guidelines. We want to make some changes. We want to raise the bar a little bit. We're going to shake things up. And they took that away from Maria and mandated it to Humber College. So, going through that whole process, seeing all the implementation, seeing it rolled out, seeing it, maybe you can talk to us about that process a little bit, because for somebody that's curious and wants to know behind the scenes, I mean, that's probably the pinnacle of really peeling back the layers and seeing, how our organized real estate, really goes into hyper mode.
Absolutely. So when we began, we had this incredible leader. His name is Miguel Lamero. He was at the time the acting associate dean that was responsible for the entire delivery of the education from Rico. Now there's a relationship here. So the relationship is Rico provides the content to be taught, and then we have NIIT, the company that then takes that content, creates PDFs, workbooks, and then the actual e-learning that the learner goes through. Now, then comes Humber College. Humber College is the venue through which they are going to now deliver the education. And so that how it's delivered, the scheduling, all of that is now gone through Humber College. When we started, I never forget, there's about 700 applicants to try and become what we call a facilitator at Humber College. They needed good people to come and help with the delivery. And just a quick of a peek, in the beginning, I got part of a management of 5 individuals, or 5 to 6 individuals in the beginning, where we would help Miguel directly in making sure that the delivery can happen really well. And we got involved with interviewing, with making sure that facilities that we're bringing on have a certain level of expertise and skills and knowledge. And then all that led to us delivering the first residential simulation sessions. And this was before COVID, so that happened in person. And what happened at that time, the commercial real estate course wasn't ready, wasn't fully made by Rico. So we had a period of time where learners were getting conditional registrations, meaning, okay, you're a registrant, but you can only do residential. When the commercial course is out, okay, now you can come back, do commercial course, and now you get a full registration. So there were a lot of ups and downs, but I think the experience was so incredibly amazing for me because we literally saw our team grow to today we're about 110, 120 facilitators, I believe. And so that from that to 120, there's a lot of nuances, making sure the quality stays the same as the number of facilitators come in and also the number of learners that go through the program. So it's truly been incredible.
Well, I got a question for you on that. I don't know if you even know the answer, but you start with, like, 700 applicants, a lot of people showing interest that want to become realtor, want to take the course anyways. Do you get a feel for how many of those, or percentage wise, how many are really looking to do it on a full-time basis versus some that, oh, I'm going to get my real estate license and I might do the odd couple deals here and there to supplement an income or whatever else I'm doing and just do it on a part-time basis?
So Humber definitely has the metrics more down to the accuracy, but the 700 applicants I mentioned before was more so for realtors showing interest in becoming a facilitator, so they can be part of the delivery of the education. However, I think we estimated around 15,000 learners that go through the entire program every year, and I believe what I found, about close to 1/3 either drop by the second or the third course. That's usually the indication. And I believe the third course, when you get to it, is one of the biggest ones. And it talks all about residential. So by that point, you get a certain percentage of learners that either drop out or they lose interest.
Yeah, no, good. Like I'm a proponent of, one of the best things for the industry is to get rid of all the part-timers. The only part-timers that I like in the industry are people that are late in their career, that are just slowing down, but they're experienced, they know what they're doing, and they're gradually winding down. But the guys starting up that think, oh, I could just do this on the side, they just screw it up for everybody else, by taking a little market share away, but they're not doing a proper job because they're not, they maybe got their license, but they won't end up with enough practical knowledge. And we want to talk to you a little about that. Like, it's one thing being a classroom, but you need some of the practical knowledge taught as well, as opposed to just
Absolutely.
reading the books.
Absolutely agree with you. And I think that's one of the reasons where the shift happened from Urbia to Humber. And one of the biggest reasons was to raise the bar. And the idea here is Humber truly understands the idea and the balance of how to keep the balance between textbook knowledge and the practicability aspect of it. So, for example, here with the textbook knowledge, what it tries to do for every learner, it tries to just give them a solid foundation of the theories and the concepts. But then the practicability of it that needs to be practiced in a class environment can now completely complement what they just read and give them a deeper understanding of what they just read about. Now, with Humber, if you notice with Urbia, I remember back in the day when I did it, it was just e-learning. All I had to do was read and then pass an exam. But when I came out of it, I really didn't understand it to a point of how can I apply it in a real world setting. But rather, with Humber, what they're doing now is they increased the number of classes and they added this component that they call a simulation session. And that's where I believe the game has completely changed. Now, just to give you an example, if a learner currently goes through the Humber program, they go through the first 3 courses that are e-learning, but right after the third course, which is residential, they are now forced to be part of a simulated session. And that's about 31 hours that they have to be on camera, because we're now after COVID, so it's all being done virtually. They have to be on camera in a group of environment of other learners that are in the same point of journey, plus 2 facilitators that are guiding them through this journey. And what happens in the simulated sessions is they simulate real world scenarios of what would happen in a particular case and study, what would you do? And then there's group discussions on it. Then there's a facilitator guiding them to what they need to learn and how deep can they go into the understanding of what they just read. And the simulation sessions, honestly, does such a great job of giving them a much better understanding of what they read. For example, one of the complaints was that people that are coming out of RIA have no clue how to write a clause or a condition. One of the things that they practice now at Humber simulation sessions is literally how to write a condition. And we put them through an activity of writing one and then peer reviewing it and then reviewing it with the facilitator on what a facilitator would have done, and then kind of getting the learning points out across. And we do this, by the way, a few times during the simulation sessions. So if you compare the quality of a learner coming out of the Humber program today versus the quality of a learner that came out in RIA, the quality now is definitely improved.
I love the idea. Sorry, I love the idea of the simulation classes. I think, having an environment where you can actually use the textbook knowledge and apply it to real world scenario in a controlled environment is really, really smart to, like really expand and get people comfortable with some of this knowledge. And the fact that it's in a controlled environment, and the fact that there's 31 hours of simulation, gives me a lot of confidence as somebody in the industry that has to work with these new realtors and train them and teach them. I think it does raise the bar, and I think it gives new realtors a lot more confidence coming into the field as well.
Yeah, I think realtors graduating today, going through this system, are going to be way ahead of realtors that graduated 5-10 years ago, because they weren't like, I'm convinced that some of them under the old system barely attended anything, and they had somebody else show up and write the exams for them because they don't know what a status certificate is. They don't know the difference between using the agreement of purchase sale form for a resale versus a resale condo, like basic stuff. And I don't think we're going to see that as much when people are going through this type of training, especially with the practical side of it.
Amazing. And just to add more to that, in the simulation sessions, just to give you more context, we go through, for example, certain pre-printed clauses in an agreement of purchase and sale. For example, the title clause, the title search clause. We go through the idea of what does it mean to have an offer plan before the offer? What does it mean to go through the working with the realtor, which was a form that's not now effective, but the entire process of, okay, we're before the offer, we're now at the offer, we're now after the offer. It's actually sectioned in that 3 ways. And what's amazing is the learners finally get to ask questions. After reading on their own, they finally get to ask questions in a group setting. And also, they're so engaged because this is the one opportunity where they get to meet everybody else that are in the same journey as them. So the confidence boost is honestly next level.
I have a question on that. We're in we live in a very multicultural society here.
Sure.
And, agents and students that you're dealing with come from all kinds of backgrounds, and English isn't always their first language. Is it all taught in English, and are there ways for people that aren't comfortable in English to get some assistance in the languages they're more comfortable in?
Absolutely, great question. It seems through every session that I've done, and I've done close to 100 in total now. With that being said, I have come across learners that's English is not their first language. They have a bit of challenge with learning. What we try to do as much as possible is during those simulated sessions, we try to go one-on-one with that learner. So let's say a group of learners are doing an activity, we would go one-on-one in a breakout room and kind of slow down our pace. Maybe use simpler words. Maybe come at a different angle and approach it so they can understand it. We would do techniques such as visuals. Maybe draw out the entire concept to them. Visually, literally draw it out on a whiteboard and see if they can understand. So with us as an educator, we have tools in our sleeves. So for us, we're just thinking, okay, which tool can we use now? Is the challenge that they're not understanding my words, or is the challenge that I need to slow down my explanation? So it's all these nuances that we try to kind of find out and try our best to help. But unfortunately, there's no, let's say, translations or translators that are present to be able to help with that. I believe the assumption to some level here is that there has to be a basic understanding of the English language to some degree, because they have to go through the e-learning, and they cannot join the sessions, by the way, unless and until they have finished every page of the e-learning.
Sameer, if there's a realtor that's listening to this podcast and they were thinking about possibly getting more involved, what requirements or what is, what are you guys looking for in terms of hiring more facilitators?
Great point. Currently, I believe if anyone wants to reach out and you're interested in becoming a facilitator, you can contact Serena Hart. She's the manager for the current program that is in charge of the program. And depending on the availability or demand, we just send in your resume and conversate. You're going to most likely be, there's definitely a criteria that Serena then goes through with you, and she has her own filters on what she believes is adequate or not. So that's going to be all up to her decision. But that's what you can do for sure.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I would encourage anybody that wants to get a little bit more involved and give back. I think I love this industry. And I think after, being in this industry for over 17 years, I think getting more involved with the education side of it and being able to give back and transfer your knowledge onto new realtors is a great way of, really giving back to the industry. So anybody listening that wants to get involved, I would definitely contact Serena Hart. We can drop her contact below in the description. And, it's a great way to give back.
Absolutely. And by the way, whoever's interested as well, I highly recommend, if you want to up your game and really have a solid profile, go ahead and Google Facilitation Basics by John McCain and just give that book a read, because there's a reason why they call it facilitators and not teachers. And they're specifically using that verbiage because facilitation is a different style compared to the normal, teaching something. And David, should I speak to that a little bit, or should we have?
Please. Yeah,
amazing. So this was what absolutely intrigued me. Miguel, the leader at that time, I would say he may have been one of the biggest reasons of why I got even more obsessive into being part of Humber and making sure that I'm at my best when I'm an educator and a facilitator. So we actually had to go through this learning of what does it mean to facilitate? Like, what is facilitation? I actually never heard of it before. But the moment I learned about it and I understand what it means, I absolutely became in love with it. And I started actually using the facilitation skills at every other thing I would do. So if I was mentoring somebody, if I was training other individuals at a brokerage level, I was completely changing my style because I was convinced. Now, facilitation at a very basic level is how can you, without giving up the answer, how can you guide someone to self-discover the answer? That's really in a one sentence idea of facilitation. So that means as a facilitator, you have to be patient. You have to almost hold your tongue and not reveal the answer and ask really powerful questions to give the learner the opportunity to think on their own and literally have that dead silence of 5 seconds so they can reflect, and then give you an answer. It requires the individual, myself, to, again, so as I said, be patient, be very smart with how I'm guiding the learner to what I'm trying to get out of them. So it's a journey, and I'm just almost this guide tour, and I'm controlling and guiding as much as I can. And then you come into a group environment, because in a group environment, the whole idea is how can you have the entire group talk, guide the discussions really well, and so they can find together the answer. Because if a learner self-discovers versus being told the answer, there's a major difference on how and for how long that can stick into their head. If you self-discover it, I think that's a permanent learning. And I don't think that's going to get away from you now. But being told is also, it's you may not even have the learner engaged. Whereas with the guided questions, the learner is constantly stimulated with their brain on where are we going? Where do you think the answer is? And then we have to learn the ideas of, okay, making sure everybody feels safe to contribute. Everybody feels, comfortable enough to say, yeah, I want to raise my hand and actually add to the discussion. This is fun. So that's really, again, the idea. So by the time I'm done, the learner should be tired of speaking, not me. The spotlight is actually on the learners and not on the facilitator at all. I'm almost to be behind the scenes and just voicing. And the learners are the focus, and they're the ones really doing it all. So, which is why in the Humber simulation sessions, what happens is we actually are surveyed. So every time a session finishes, the learners are sent a survey so they can rate their experience and also their experience of the facilitators. And I read these always, and I always get the responses from learners that say, oh my God, I have been to different universities, colleges, I've gone through education all my life. I have never experienced such a learning. I have never experienced this before. And it's because they've never been in a simulated session where the facilitator was completely in a different style and was not giving up the answers and etc. So that's facilitation. And so Facilitation Basics is a book that teaches you everything you need to know about becoming a facilitator and being a facilitator.
Well, this is great news to me, Sameer. Like David and I have discussed leadership skills in many of our podcasts and how we lead our businesses and things like that. And what everything you just said just sort of taught me that the leadership style that I have, and probably because that's the way I was taught when I attended leadership training programs, was to be a facilitator. And I think that's what I actually am doing with my younger associate lawyers and the clerks in our office, because when they come to me with a problem, I don't want to give them the answer. Even if I don't always know the answer, but even if I knew the answer, I don't want to give it to them. I want to have a discussion. Like, what do you think? What research have you done? I want them to look into it first, try and figure it out, then come to me, then we'll discuss it. And then I'll give them my input, because it doesn't serve anybody good if I have a problem here. David, what's the answer? Because first of all, half the time I don't know what the answer is. I got to figure it out too, because we don't always know the answers. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. We have to do some research. We got to figure it out. We got to investigate, review the file, whatever. So I think I'm naturally a facilitator. David, you're probably doing the same thing in your office. And I'm glad that this is the way they're teaching the industry, because otherwise you're getting someone else to do your homework for you. It doesn't help you learn.
Right.
Yeah, it just seems that facilitating is just, really going deep and sort of, soft guiding the conversation. And I would imagine that a lot of the times the learners have a light bulb and an aha moment at a certain point, because, through that guidance, they're taught to, really self reflect and find the right answer.
Absolutely.
And that's very powerful, and it's exciting, and it's empowering as well at the same time. So I think it builds a lot of confidence along the way.
Absolutely. And the idea being, it's kind of, you're going by the longer route instead of the shorter route, but with a lot more impact and a lot more benefits.
Samir, have you experienced any students, that were possibly, weak at the beginning and go through simulations and come up really strong on the other side?
Oh, absolutely. I've had learners. So this is my core belief. This is some of the things that I try to also, when I mentor other facilitators, I try to convey this to them all the time. I always tell them, because also we're now post-COVID, so everything is still being done virtually, although that is being slowly changed back to having in-person sessions. But in a virtual world, it's even harder to grab someone's attention. It's even more awkward for a learner to say, you know what, I'm going to raise my hand and actually comment or say something virtually. it's harder. So the challenges on a facilitator is tougher. So in the first hour of the first day of the morning of the session, that's where you can truly, truly establish the first impression, establish what the environment's going to be like, and how this is going to be for every learner involved. And if you can do a great job of conveying to learners that A, this is going to be fun, B, we're all going to be doing this together, C, I'm not talking the whole time, you're going to be talking most of the time, what happens slowly is you get learners to come out of their shell. I've had learners where the first 4 or 5 hours of the first day, they never participated. They were listening, they were engaged, but they would never participate in a large group discussion because they were too shy, or they felt, you know what, if I give a wrong answer, I'm going to be embarrassed. And those are the feelings that they always hold them back. And so we use techniques such as, okay, when we ask a question, we stop, we ask the question, we stop, and we let there be 5 seconds silence. Because we know that in the dead silence, they're thinking. They're thinking to give me a good answer because they don't want to feel embarrassed by giving the wrong answer. So we do 2 techniques to get them out of that shell. And one of the techniques is, okay, everyone, here's a question. So we ask the question. All right, let's hear from those we haven't heard from in a while. We always kind of reinforce this invitation, this soft invitation of, hey, join us. And as learners come in and comment, we again bring that invitation. Okay, anyone else? And we wait, because again, we know it's going to take a few seconds for them to get the courage, raise their hand, and then give the response. So there's so many techniques like this that we use that I have seen learners that on day 2 and 3, I honestly am having trouble controlling them to stop talking. And they completely transform. And so it's these real great techniques that you have to have where you have to naturally bring them up. So for example, in facilitation, the hard red flag is never pick on a learner. Never go and pick on someone. Never. You're just going to completely destroy any positivity that you may have created. So instead, what we do is we make it challenging for ourselves, and we keep using these soft invitations. We keep making it fun and easy. And we may add a lot of humor from time to time. So again, it breaks this feeling of, oh, I'm going to embarrass myself, or this is a very professional setting. And I have to be at most professional in terms of how I speak and what I say. So we want to break that a little and say, no, this is a fun environment. Let's talk. It's okay. Give us the wrong answers. We're not going to report you to RICO. And they're dying of laughter. So it's this multitude of techniques you have to add. But yes, I have seen people transform, and it is such an amazing feeling to see by the end of day 4 or the last day, they are just so involved. And yeah, so that's one of my little dopamine hits.
It reminds me of my law school days. We had a couple professors that were Socratic method teachers, and they like their whole goal was to embarrass you. And we used to cower, just, the anticipation of going into that class. Every student was afraid, like, who's he going to pick on today? Because it was the opposite of that. Like, he would never give you an answer, but he would make fun of you, like literally make fun of you, and you didn't do your work and you didn't look at it, and he'd be like right in your face, and he'd pick a couple students every class and be all over them. So you had to come to class prepared. He forced us to do that because you were afraid of being embarrassed. But it really was an awful environment to learn in, because even if you thought you had the right answer, even if you gave the right answer, he'd find a way to make you feel so small, and you just couldn't wait to get out of there. So, and you'd take these professors because they were mandated to you in first year, and then second, third year, everybody avoided taking classes with those professors. But I'm glad this has evolved and gone way beyond. This is a way more comfortable environment to learn in.
Absolutely. And again, the survey results are a way that we measure that, and seeing those survey results and then seeing their comments at the end, it's just a testament to the fact that, yes, we're doing this right.
Amazing. Well, Sameer, thank you so much for joining us today. It's nice for somebody that's been in the industry a really long time to kind of get a glimpse into the new generation of realtors coming out of facilitation, and to kind of understand what they've been through, understand that environment. And as a brokerage owner, as somebody that we hire a lot of new realtors to work at Sutton Group Summit Realty, we actually pride ourselves on creating and fostering that kind of environment. It's great to hear how our culture kind of aligns with what you guys are doing, and for us to pivot and make little changes so we can even better understand and better foster even a better environment for the new generation and the new realtors entering the industry. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we're going to have you back in the next podcast because we're going to get into a really cool topic. We're going to get into growing and scaling your business using systems, which is something that you're super excited about.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time. And again, this is a fun session.
Thanks, Sameer.
Thanks, Sameer.